What is going on today, guys? Sorry for the wind if there's a little bit of wind. That's pretty much standard on my videos at this point, but if you look, the trees, they're really not blowing or anything, but I don't know. I can feel wind, and I know this GoPro is going to pick it up. So there's some wind, once again. Sorry about that, but it's pretty much become the standard on this channel. But I want to discuss what is a good first time, you know, like a good diesel to buy for a first time, you know, diesel buyer. Because, you know, for me, I've never owned a diesel. This is my first diesel pickup truck, and they're definitely different than owning a gas vehicle. You know, I don't know if it's like as extreme as like going from like a gas or something to, you know, like a gas to a an electric car or something, but it's definitely a different ownership compared to what someone called the cops on me. All right, back to what I was saying. Cop was really friendly. He was just driving through the lot and just seeing what was going on. But yeah, if you're, you know, the jump from a gas to a diesel is definitely going to be something different, you know, than, I mean, it's different owning a diesel motor than compared to a gas. I mean, it's really just, in some ways it's simpler, in other ways it's more complicated. Everything has pros and cons, and diesels are no exceptions. So if you're looking at buying one, you know, it's like, you know, what do I do? What does like a first time, you know, buyer do for a diesel pickup? And I'm going to try to use some of my experiences and why I bought this truck, and hopefully that will help some other people out that are buying, you know, a used diesel truck. I'm going to just right off the bat, I'm just going to get rid of the old diesels off the list right now. So I'm talking about the old, like, GM Detroits that came in, like, the 80s, 90s, like, early 90s. The 6.6, I believe it is. I think it was, like, the 2000 or 99 they had the Detroits. I forget the years. I'm sorry. I'm not really a big GM, you know, fanboy. I don't know too much about it, but I do know they had the Detroits. They're excluded, and I'm going to exclude the first-gen Cummins. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the first-gen Cummins. They're really nice trucks, but just for the sheer age of them, I'm just going to exclude that truck out of the video. So if you're looking at buying like a first-time truck, I would just stay away from something really old. Also, I'm not going to talk about the old IDIs like the 6.9, which the Fords had, the 6.9 IDI and the 7.3 IDI. Once again, they are pretty solid, good trucks. They're simple, but I'm just going to stay away from them. They're just old, you know what I mean? They're just too old to really be dealing with. So we're really talking about the Duramaxes, the Cummins, you know, second gen and newer, and the Powerstrokes. So I guess we'll get the one off the list now that I really don't like at all, but, you know, there are model years that people like and will get. Let's talk about the Duramax, okay? Now, the first generation Duramaxes, I'm going to have to look it up on my phone. I actually pulled it up because, once again, I don't know too much about the Chevys. I forget. They had the LB7 from 2001 to 2004. You do not really want to get one of those trucks. In my opinion, they're more trouble than what they're worth. They had injector problems. They had head gasket problems. You know, I'm sure a lot of that at this point has been corrected, but they're still somewhat problematic. They have problems with their VP pump or something. Take some of the things I say with a grain of salt, because some things I don't know 100%. I do know the first generation Duramaxes, they have their fair share of issues, mainly being head gaskets and injectors. So personally, I just would stay away from those trucks in general. They make the least amount of power out of all the Duramaxes. They're kind of older at this point anyway, you know, from 2001, so they're kind of old. I don't know. I personally think the next generation Duramax is much better, and that's the LLY. If I were looking at getting a Duramax, I would consider an LLY. Now I'm sorry, I'm looking at this. The LBZ is considered probably the best Duramax out of all the diesels. The LBZ is like, when it comes to the Duramaxes, that is like the one that people want. And why I wouldn't recommend buying that for a first-time buyer is the price. They're just expensive. You know, that is like the generation that's pre-emissions, has the most power. They fixed all the bugs out in those years. So me personally, if you're a first-time diesel buyer, I would stay away from the LBZ. That's just my opinion, not because they're not good. They are pretty decent motors. They have good transmissions. Just for the simple fact that they're kind of expensive for what they are. And you can just get the earlier generation, the LLY, and it's still has a few little bugs. They sometimes overheat. They're pretty solid for the most part. So personally, I would stick with those. You can probably save about $4 or $5 grand on the same exact mile truck and everything, maybe even more, and you're gonna have the same reliability for the most part. Maybe a stupid couple hiccups here and there. So that's what I would stick with. And the years on the LLY are from 04 to 05. So if you're looking at getting a Duramax, I would go with an 04, 05. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the common problems because I don't know all the common problems, but if you're looking to get a Duramax, I would stick with those years. Now, let's get into the Cummins, which would be Dodge. If you're looking at getting a Cummins truck, I would say the best generation for those would probably be a second gen or a third gen. Now, the second gens are the ones, obviously, after the first gens that are real boxy, and I excluded those out. And I only excluded those out because of the age. The first gen trucks are actually really good trucks. Besides the truck itself, I mean, the Dodges are known to just fall apart, you know. So, personally, I would stick away from a first gen just because of the age, and, you know, at the end of the day, it's a Chrysler product. So I would look into second gens. They seem to be the best priced for what you get. At least in my area, the second gens seem to be pretty decently priced. Good condition ones do fetch a decent dollar, but the second gens are good price. They're super reliable. The only problem with them is, once again, just everything on the truck falls apart. I mean, the front end, like the ball joints, the interior, it just completely falls apart. So something to keep in mind. The third gens are also really good trucks. I would also recommend looking at a third gen, because then once you get into the fourth gen Cummins, that's when they start going like up in price. So look at a second and third gen. Those seem to be the best priced for what they are. Like I said, pretty good power. Once again, I don't know all the common problems with them. I do know the Cummins do have some issues. Probably the Cummins has the least amount out of any other diesel motor. The Cummins is probably, out of the big three, the Cummins is probably the most reliable. But, once again, you have the truck, which is like probably the least reliable. I mean, the transmissions are garbage, especially on the second gens. The third gens have better transmissions. So, you know, it's really hit and miss. That's the only real problem with the Dodge trucks, is the fact that the trucks fall apart and the transmissions are just absolute garbage. I mean, they're just not good. So if you get one, expect to be putting in a transmission or get one rebuilt, because at some point you are going to lose your trans. Now, let's get into the Fords. You know what I know the most. I'm the most knowledgeable when it comes to the Powerstrokes. If you're looking at getting, you know, a Powerstroke, I would probably get the generation that I have here, which would be a 99, 7.3. The 7.3s are well known for being a super reliable truck, decent power for the time. Now, they're as slow as a dog, but when it came out, had good power, reliable, pretty easy to work on for the most part. I would stay away from the first generation trucks. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the first generation trucks, the OBS style. I love those. They're like my favorite truck of all time. But they're just, once again, they're old, so I'm going to exclude those out. If you're looking at buying one, I would just kind of just push it away. Just, I mean, if you have some money, you can fix it up, do the fix whatever problems, get an OBS or get a first gen Cummins. But most people that are buying a pickup truck for the first time, they're going to be careful of how much money they spend, and they're going to want to feel it out before they fully jump into owning a diesel. At least that's how I feel about it. So if you are looking at getting a Ford, I would get a 7.3. Now, I could recommend the 6.0 to you guys, because 6.0s, believe it or not, I don't care what the internet says and what other people say, they don't know what they're talking about. The 6.0s are actually very good motors if, and that's a big if, you bulletproof them. You have to bulletproof them. You have to do the head studs, EGR delete, look up all the information on powerstrokehelp.com. He's a guru on these trucks, and he'll tell you anything you want to know about the 7.3, 6.0, 6.4s, and the 6.7s. So he can tell you anything you want to know. But the problem with the 6.0s is if you don't buy one bulletproof, yeah, you get a really nice truck, rides better than this, looks a little bit better than this, just an overall better truck, better interior. They're just better. The newer style of these trucks are better, but when they're not bulletproof, they're just not reliable. They just, you're talking $8,000 in engine repairs or more. When the motor grenades itself, you're talking, I don't know how much a new motor is. A brand new motor for 6.0 is probably like $12,000 or more. So you're going to be out $12,000 on a motor. If you bulletproof it, that costs somewhere around like $8,000 to bulletproof it. But, who has the money to buy a truck for, let's say $15,000 and then put another $8,000 into it to bulletproof it to make it reliable? That's the problem that I have with the 6.0, and that's why I personally wouldn't recommend it for a first-time buyer. I would honestly just stick with the 7.3. They're reliable. You can learn how to work on a diesel. And just, get yourself familiar with owning, a diesel pickup truck. Because they're, like I said, they're completely different than anything else out there. I mean, they're different than a gas, and they're certainly different than an electric car, I can tell you that. The Powerstrokes, you want a Ford, get a 99 to 03. Those are the best style trucks, the cheapest, and they still look pretty decent. If you're looking at getting a Chevy, I would get the LLY, which is almost not the LLY, the LLY, I'm sorry. The LLY from 04 to 05. Those are probably going to be the cheapest Duramaxes you can get and the most reliable. And when it comes to the Cummins, I would either stick with a 2nd gen or a 3rd gen. I'd say preferably a 3rd gen. They're actually priced pretty decently. They're much more modern. And I believe they have a different transmission, so the transmission's a little bit more updated compared to the 2nd gen. So, I would stick with either one of those 2 years. So that's it. Let me know what you guys think. If you own a diesel, how come you bought what you bought? Personally, I'm a Ford guy. I like Fords. So, I mean, that's mainly why I got a Powerstroke. But if in my opinion, if I was still completely unbiased towards any brand, I would either have gotten what I have now, a Powerstroke, or I would have gotten a Cummins. Because I do kind of like Dodges too. So, that's personally what I would have stuck with. But that's it. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.